If you want more time, money, freedom, and have a business that's not reliant on you, then you're in the right place. Each week, Mark Creedon, along with some of the very best business minds in the world, will take you through simple, practical steps you can take to create the business you always wanted. From his own practical experience, Mark will show you how to work less, make more, and get the business you always wanted, the one that you deserve. Now here's your host, one of Australia's most sought-after business coaches, Mark Creedon.
Welcome to the latest episode of the Mastermind for Business podcast. I'm Mark Creedon, your host. In this episode, I want to talk to you about a concept I called revolution versus evolution. And really, what it's about is how to get yourself unstuck. So, if you are in a service business or a professional practice and you're feeling a little bit stuck, whether it's stuck in your business generally or whether it's that you're stuck on a particular project, you're in the right place, because in this episode I'm going to show you a really simple process to get you unstuck. Let's get underway. The concept of revolution versus evolution is something that I've been working on for quite a number of years, and I've shared it with hundreds of clients in our mastermind program. The thing is this: most businesses evolve, and sure, you've got a plan, and by the way, there's probably a whole bunch of you listening to this right now going, I'm sure, Mark, I have a plan in my head, which means you don't really have one at all. But maybe you've got a plan, or certainly maybe you had a plan when you first started. But what's happened is the business has evolved. It started just as you, and you did everything. You did the bookwork, you did the accounts, you did the phones, you did the maybe you worked from your vehicle or from a home office, and then you went and got some space, and you hired a bookkeeper, and then you hired an assistant, and then you hired a salesperson, and you hired an admin person. It just evolves over time. And so sometimes what happens is the business becomes like a magic carpet, but it's the magic carpet that's taking us on a ride. So if you're sitting there right now listening to this podcast, or you're walking or you're running or whatever you're doing, listening to this podcast, you're going, yeah, that's me. Like, I just feel like I'm on this journey that I've got no control over, right? Because the thing about a magic carpet, unlike a plane or a helicopter or anything, it's got no controls, right? You just got to grab the edges and hang on for dear life. Most of the clients, when they first come into our mastermind program, they feel exactly like that. They're just gripping the edge of the carpet, hanging on for dear life. And the reason for that, it's not that they don't have a great business. They do. They're massively successful. It's probably more like a job than a business, because it still requires their input into the day-to-day operations on a daily basis. But it's a ride because it's just evolved, right? It's evolved over time. Things have been added to it, and it's just like this big piece of machinery that just rolls on, and they are not in control of it. So over the last few episodes, we've spoken about things that you can do to get back in control of your time, get control of people interrupting you, how to prioritize, the people that matter most, your own well-being, your performance. In this episode, I want to talk about the concept of revolution versus evolution, and the way it works is this. It simply says, imagine if you had to start a project or the business from day one. And whilst I've been teaching this for years, it really came to light for me recently when I was watching a game of football. So for those listening to this who know rugby league, and particularly the NRL, you'll know that at the beginning of the 2023 season, the Dolphins entered the NRL competition. So I was watching a local derby of the Dolphins versus the Titans, and I live at Redcliffe, so the Dolphins are, I guess, they're my second team after the Bronx. But when I was watching the game, it got to half time, and I've just got to check this because make sure I'm right. The score was 26-0 against the Dolphins, right? 26-0. Now, 26-0, that's like 4 converted tries plus 1. So they've got to score 5 times in the second half to be able to get in front of that score. And put it in context for you, the first 40 minutes, they've scored 0 times. The next 40 minutes, you're asking them to score 5 times to be able to win the game. Almost an impossible task, and you would think certainly an impossible task. And I remember going sort of at halftime and just thinking, it's a shot bird. This deal's done. The Dolphins are done. The Titans have won the game. Second half came. The whole game turned around, and in fact, the end score was 38-26. So the Titans never scored again. Titans fans listening to this, I'm sorry. This isn't a bash of the Titans. They're a Queensland team. Love them just as much as any other Queensland team. But they didn't score once. So we had a role reversal, right? Well, the Dolphins didn't score at all in the first half. The Titans didn't score at all in the second half. Now, this is not a rugby league podcast. It's a business podcast. But there's a message to the story. Because what I really wanted to know was how could a team that couldn't score at all in the first half come out and put 38 points on a team that had scored every point in the first half and have that team score no points in the second half to walk away with a 38-26 win. Now, a lot of it has to do with the master coach himself, Wayne Bennett. I've had the privilege of sharing the stage with Wayne Bennett, but I read this great interview and with the captain. It was the post-game interview with the captain, and they said to the captain, what did the coach say at half-time? And what the coach said was, I want you guys to run on the field and imagine the score is 0-0. You're starting from scratch. You're not chasing down a score. You're not chasing down mistakes. You're not trying to make up for mistakes that you made in the first half. The score is 0-0. Go out and play the game as if the score was 0-0. And, it got me thinking. I was thinking, well, that's a little bit like that revolution versus evolution concept that I have. Imagine that you're working on a project right now. And I want you to stop and just take a quick think about this. Think of a project that you're working on right now and imagine the score for that project was 0-0. Everything that's gone wrong didn't happen. Everything that's sort of, taken more time or become more complicated or more convoluted than it needs to be didn't happen. You're now walking into that project from a 0-0 standpoint. What would you do differently? What are you going to do? Imagine you are the Dolphins now and you're walking out at 0-0 and you want to walk away with a 38-point second half. What are you going to do if the score is 0-0 in that project? Ask yourself that, and then that becomes the plan for the project moving forward. Now, there might be some things that you need to tidy up. There might be some errors that you do need to fix. And there might have been errors in the game of the Dolphins in the second half where they were allowing, where maybe there were lapses of defence, issues that they need to fix. But the point is, they worked from a 0-0 mentality, and that's what I want you to do with the project. Now, let's take it one step further. Think about your business. Stop and just think about your business. And if you're listening to this while you're driving, you're running, please don't stop. But at some stage, grab a piece of paper and a pen or a notepad or your iPad or a notebook and a pencil, your phone, whatever. Dip your thumbnail in tar, whatever works for you. But what I want you to do is think about your business. Hey, if I closed the doors on Friday and I reopened them on Monday, what would I do differently? If I was no longer on this magic carpet and instead I'd roll that carpet up, put it in my backpack and I'd stepped into a helicopter where I had the joystick, I was in control, what would I do differently? Because I can tell you this, having worked with hundreds of businesses, I know in all of the service businesses and professional practices that I've worked with, I know that once you take control of the joystick, it's amazing what you can actually achieve. And so the circumstances you find yourself in now, if it's feeling like you're just like you're on that magic carpet ride, like you're a slave to the business, the circumstances you find yourself in right now are not insurmountable and they are not irrecoverable. But you have to go in with a different mindset. If every day you go into your business with, I'm just on this carpet ride, I'm just going to hang on for dear life, can I tell you? That's what's going to happen. I was at a birthday party last Saturday night. I was talking to a guy who has a business in the construction game, And he was sort of saying, I can't wait till I retire. Because, and we were talking about how we're the same age, and he said, are you about to retire? I went, no, I can't imagine anything worse. I can't imagine myself retiring, not because I have to work, but because I'm just having too much fun, right? I'm enjoying myself so much. And he said to me, oh yeah, it's easy for you because you're not doing manual labor, you're not on the tools. I'm actually doing manual labor. And I sort of looked at him and thought, well, how long have you been in business? Oh yeah, I've been in business for 30 years. How many staff do you have? Oh, I've got 25 guys. Why are you still on the tools? Well, because I never really thought about getting off. I just kept, right? He just kept turning up, doing the same thing at day 3,000 that he was doing in day 1. He was doing exactly the same thing, just on a bigger scale. He now had 25 people working for him, so he could do bigger projects. But you know what? He was still walking around with a hammer in his hand. In one of the earlier episodes of this podcast, and if you skip back and have a look at it, we spoke to Tim and Felix from Bow Racking, and they spoke very much about how we had helped them in 12 months to a multi-million-dollar pallet racking installation business to get off the tools. They hadn't picked a hammer or a spanner up for 3 or 4 months, and how that was a priority for them. How we did it was using this revolution versus evolution process. So instead of rocking up into the business every day, and this is what this guy did, he just turned up every day. Don't get me wrong, great guy, great business, really nice bloke, but at nearly 60, he was buggered. He was buggered physically. He was tired. He needed to retire. The business wasn't really in a position for him to retire, but he didn't have a choice. Fact is, he did have a choice, and it even wasn't too late now, which was another thing that he said, if I wish I'd met you 10 years ago. The best time was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. It's not too late. But this revolution versus evolution process is going, what are the things that I would do differently? And so what happens is you go into the business. If we use the analogy of I'm closing it on Friday, I'm replanning things over the weekend, and I'm reopening it on Monday, you'll go into the business on Monday with an entirely different mindset. Just like the Dolphins, when they ran out onto the field at the beginning of the second half, they ran out with a different mindset. They didn't run out with their heads down going, this is a shot bird, it's lost, we're just going to have to we've got to try and recover 26 points. They just went out to score 38, and it's exactly what they did. And you can do the same thing in your business. Whether it's a project, whether it's your whole business, you can walk into your business tomorrow with a 0-0 mentality. And you should do this, you should think about this. What would I do differently if I was starting all over, this revolution process? If you have people working for you, one of the challenges I would set for you right now would be to think about, if everybody in your business left you, or you sold the business, or you closed the business, and you were to rehire people. So imagine you've closed the doors, but when you open them on Monday, it's exactly the same size and you need the same number of people or the same skill sets. Which of the people that you have in your business right now would you rehire? And if your answer isn't every single one of them, then you need to seriously look at those people. Frankly, you need to seriously look at you, because you're carrying people in your business that probably shouldn't be there. Doesn't mean that you need to, move them on. Maybe they're just not in the right place. Maybe you're trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole. Maybe they're not in the right seats of the bus for you. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about your business. I want you to imagine that you're going to close the doors on Friday and you're going to reopen them on Monday, and you're going to think about, what would I do differently? Who would I have alongside me? And what would they be doing? Maybe you've got somebody who's really, really good at a particular thing, but maybe they're good at sales, but you've got them doing admin that they're kind of mediocre at. They're mediocre because that's not where their genius lies. Take that concept, go into your business next Monday with a 0-0 mentality, think about what you do differently, and watch how you will get unstuck. Hey, if you know somebody who's in a service business or a professional practice who would benefit from these sorts of things, please share the podcast with them. We'd love to have them jump on, review the podcast. Love to hear what you've got to say. If you've got some ideas on some future topics that you'd like to hear about, pop them in the review. We read them all, and we'd love to give you what it is that you're looking for in the Mastermind for Business podcast. If you know someone or you are in a service business or a professional practice and you'd like to learn more about these things, because these are the sort of things that we teach our clients in our Mastermind Business Accelerator program every day of the week. We dive deep into these things. We actually help them not just to learn this, but to implement it and make it happen. metropolemastermind.com.au. Love to have a chat with you. That's it for this episode of the Mastermind for Business podcast. I'm Mark Creedon. I look forward to chatting to you in the next episode.